You're talking about a relationship to the order, the creator, the almighty, whatever it is you want to call that substrate that is reality. And, do I believe that Eddie Van Halen and Jimi Hendrix and Paganini and Heifetz jacked into the true essence of the world? Yeah, they did. I don't think it's as good as differential geometry. I'm sorry. I do think it's amazing for other reasons. And thank God, because it's very difficult to communicate differential geometry at scale. But the thing about eruption, for example, what level do you want to come into eruption? Do you want just the sheer majesty and pageantry? Do you want the theatrics? Like, you could put him on wires and, set his pants on fire or whatever. And, it'd be totally in keeping with it. On the other hand, you want to talk something completely precise that, shows off the virtuosity of what's possible with a Stratocaster. Everything works. Multi-axis.
But there's a precision to it, which is very different than Hendrix. There's a messiness to Hendrix that, to me, somebody who has OCD has always been.
How does Hendrix affect you? I mean, let's have the Jimi Hendrix conversation. I don't know that we can do anything to it that hasn't already been done to it. Maybe that's not true. Maybe the idea is that every generation has to have its Hendrix conversation, and this is a long form.
It's Jimi Hendrix experience. Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
I hear he stole it from Joe Rogan.
Yeah. There's so many details. One, it hurt my soul on so many levels that you can put a thumb over the guitar to play a note, to hold a note. And it doesn't, because I wanted to be the Russian virtuoso that sits with his classical guitar in perfect form, plays really fast with the fingers, and then you want the thumb to be perfectly relaxed and supporting the neck.
That's the Russian conservatory student.
Conservatory, yeah.
Then there's the Russian wild man.
Which one is that?
Well,
they're
different Russian archetypes, right? So the completely idiosyncratic Russian is very different in a weird way from the I can do this backwards in any key, in any sleep, in my sleep, and in any time signature that just snap your fingers. We've discussed my piano tuner in previous episodes.
No, that was offline conversation. You told me the story.
I should tell you the story.
You should retell the story.
There I was in darkest Manhattan.
Yeah,
with the world's shittiest. It wasn't even an upright; it was a spinet piano. A friend had given it to me. The piano fell out of tune, and I would have to tune it. And the only tuner I knew was this Russian guy, and I hated dealing with him. There was something about his attitude that just really rubbed me the wrong way. So anyway, my wife says, tune that thing. So we get the piano tuner to come, and he's tuning this. He's like, are you sure you want to tune this piece of shit? Okay, fine. So he's like, okay, it's your money. The phone rings, and I have the phone ringer set on a landline to Paganini Caprice 24. And immediately as the phone rings, he figures out what key the phone ringer is in, which is not the key that Liszt composed the variations on Caprice 24. And he starts going into theme and variations on Caprice 24 at some level I've never heard before, just jaw-dropping. And the phone stops ringing, and we have this awkward silence. I said, I didn't know you were such a great piano player. And then he says one of these things that in Russian accented English hurts in a way you can't imagine. He said, no, you are the piano player. I am merely the piano tuner. And it's just like, oh man, through the heart.
It's kind of reminiscent. I'd love to hear actually your opinion on this. It's reminiscent of the Good Will Hunting story. What do you think about that?
That movie?
That movie. What
about it?
It's MIT.
Yeah. I guess when I think of that film, I think about Matt Damon as a young guy, risking everything, giving up Harvard. I think, probably the most accomplished group of people in the world are people who choose to give up Harvard voluntarily.
Beautiful.
Right?
Put. That's true.
Bigger than Harvard.
That's very true.
Ives was one of these people. Bill Gates, of course. And then oddly,
Zuckerberg.
What? Zuckerberg. But then Steve Jobs gave up Reed. And Reed is the weirdest, craziest college in the world. People should pay much more attention to Reed. And I'm sorry it's going through a hard time at the moment. But what it was before the current craziness is really an interesting story. irregardless, as we say in the 617 area code. I think that a lot of my reaction is to the real story of Matt Damon having this vision and being the young guy to pull it off. And, I also think about Robin Williams trying to explore heart through this lens of acting. And, as you and you've hung out with comedians, they know that they are a screwed up bunch of people. They do. They're proud about it. They really are. The idea that Robin Williams, who I saw many years ago when I was in LA, in the comedy clubs around here, he was a straight up crazy, dysregulated genius in tremendous pain. And his desire to do it earnestly through acting rather than constantly by just sniping, or being a clown or showing us how fast his mind worked relative to ours. I was really moved by that. I thought that he brought some authenticity and took a huge risk for a comedian to be that real.
And again, like you said, it doesn't always have to be, but in that case, the madness and the genius were neighbors.
That one couldn't have been any other way.
Yeah.
No, because his mind, the thing about seeing him in a comedy club was that he would react to random stimulus in the environment. It could be a heckler. Sometimes you almost got the feeling that he wanted a heckler because it gave him something to play against, right? He was instantly inventive.
But to me, the best Robin Williams is as he got closer and closer to the end of his life, because there was a sadness, and he's almost fighting the sadness with this improvisational, like the weapons he has is this wit and humor and this dancing that he does with language.
That's right.
And then sometimes when he just falls silent, you can see the sadness. And I don't know, there's something so beautiful about that. It's like this bird with a broken wing that's like trying to fly, and it's getting older and older. And he would have made one hell of a podcast guest. I'll tell you that. That's a sad.
Yeah, I have some sadness that I really do think that part of what we call podcasting is actually just getting to know a soul over and over again. Maybe the idea is that this is talking about depression and sadness and heavy feelings is not an American specialty. Seeing that in context with the beauty of life is a Russian specialty. It is very much
specialty. It sounds like a diner menu.
What?
Yeah.
You want the Russian special? A big scoop of ice cream with tons of depression. I do think that we're in a really terrifying and depressing time. And I think that part of it is we don't know if something huge is about to get started. And we don't even know what this is. I mean, we just sit here in this weird world that is falling into some new state. And we're not even super curious. It's like, what the hell just happened? Everybody's got an answer. And I'm positive that all of those answers are wrong.
Let's try to at least sneak up on the good answer.
So the central core of the answer is that the U.S. seemed to be the greatest thing in the world, in large measure because we hadn't noticed that we were getting a benefit from having no plan, not having to make a plan for low growth. As long as we had growth, we were in great shape. Let's imagine that there was that you could run an experiment. You have 1 billion copies of Earth, and you start the initial conditions slightly different. On some giant number of planets, a lot of the things that were discovered from the 1800s through the end of the 20th century are discovered in a period of time, because a lot of that just has to do with once you crack the puzzle of getting better instruments, you can see more. And the more you can see, the more you can make use of what you can see. And it turns out there was lots of stuff to do with germs or electron orbitals or, spectrum, electromagnetic spectrum. And so we got to do all of those things. And the U.S. roughly corresponded for a good chunk of its history with this bonanza. And so, of course, we look like an amazing, genius country. We have no plan. Imagine that you could sell a car. You don't have to put in seat belts. You don't have to put in airbags. You don't have to put in rear view mirrors or sensors or a rear view mirror. You could save a lot of money on a car by not putting in all of the stuff to keep things from going wrong. And I think that's what we had. We had a machine that, as long as growth was insanely good, we plowed it back, the riches and spoils and treasure back into the system and made more genius stuff. And we carried along a good chunk of humanity, hundreds of millions of people. We did not have a plan for what happens when the growth goes below the stall speed of our society.
How confident should we be that the growth is slowed in a way that is permanent rather than a kind of
permanent.
Slap in the face where
it's not the right concept. The right concept is, I try to use the same words over and over again in case people see multiple, because then the perseveration actually gets somewhere. So I use this analogy of the orchard because everyone talks about low-hanging fruit. Mm. They know the concept of low-hanging fruit, but they don't think in terms of orchards. So they say things like, you think we've picked all the low-hanging fruit, but I believe in the infinite inventiveness of the human mind.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that doesn't even work as an analogy. What if the idea is we only picked all the low-hanging fruit here, and then we're having this stupid argument about low-hanging fruit, and we're not going and looking for new orchards. We're not planting new orchards. We're not looking for forests. We're just sitting here arguing about low-hanging fruit. So my claim is there's probably a lot more low-hanging fruit, and it's not here.
It's in other orchards.
It's in other orchards. One of those turned out to be the digital orchard. The digital orchard has not been as stagnant as lots of these other, like the chemical orchard, you know?
I have faith that there's a small percentage of the population, but not zero, that's looking for those other orchards. Like, I'm excited about one of those orchards, which is, I believe there will be robots in everybody's homes, and that will unlock some totally new thing, totally new set of technologies, ideas, the way we live life, the productivity, everything. It'll change everything. So I'm excited about that orchard. So I'm roaming that orchard and wondering how the hell you kind of bring back, like the ant that finds a new source of food.
Yeah,
I'm trying to find an apple I can bring back to the
great. So you're in an Exploridian.
And do you have faith that there's enough of those?
I don't think there are very many of us. I mean, I'm one of them too.
Yeah. How many does it take? It takes one ant. It takes one ant.
What are you talking about?
How many Elons does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Okay. Let's imagine that imagine some ant goes and finds a new source of food.
Yeah.
Right. And then it comes back to the colony and it says, hey, I think I found a new source of food. And the initial reaction is, you're not authorized to find new food. What? Why would you try to go find new food?
We're going to remove you from Twitter.
Yeah. And by the way, I think the fact that you think you're allowed to go find new food shows how privileged you are as an ant. Get out of the colony. Kill him. Well, that's probably not a great model for finding new orchards. And I think that what we find is that where there's a system that allows somebody to ascend without a lot of gatekeeping, you can have that. But, I saw this happen in hedge funds. Hedge funds for a while hoovered up a lot of talent because they were places that had funding and had freedom. And in general, really smart people want to be free, and they don't want to think a lot about how they're going to, feed themselves. They want to get lost in their minds. So you can either give them productive places to play, dangerous places to play. They're either going to break into computers or find vaccines for you or build bombs or build companies. And we're not providing for the people who have to disrupt and have to innovate and trying to channel that effort. We're so focused on this other thing, which is like fairness and safety. And fairness and safety, by the way, are really important. I don't want to denigrate them. But the singular focus on fairness and safety without, in the same breath, being focused on growth and discovery and creation is going to doom us, because what we're talking about is we're always talking about divvying up the pie that is, as opposed to the pie that will be. Imagine that you spent all your time trying to divvy up the 13th century pie and you destroyed your ability to get to the 20th century. You'd be an idiot.
But one place I think I disagree with you is I don't think you need that many people to empower the geniuses, the innovators, the people who refuse to spend most of their days in meetings about fairness.
This is good.
Uh-huh.
Let's have a disagreement.
I think podcasting, whatever you call that medium, is just one little example of a tool that you can give power to. Like you and your podcast can have the next Elon Musk and make him a star.
Now I see where you're going. Okay. There has been a series of places for people to play and be free. And we've lost them successively.
What's a good place you remember? Because I disagree with you there too. I think they're still there. You can still play.
You interviewed Noam Chomsky.
Yes.
Okay. Noam Chomsky comes from an era
Well, you can play
where you could play
at MIT.
at MIT.
And you can't play. This is where I disagree with you.
We've already had this.
But
Go check the Clips channel for the Lex Fridman podcast.
I think I wasn't brave enough at that time, and I'm not really brave enough now.
Come on.
Because
Where's the vodka?
It's a feeling, and people are going to tear me apart. Oh, what are you? And you speak from emotions and facts.
Wait.
The feeling.
Whose podcast is this? It's yours.
Yes.
Okay. Tell the people who are currently editing your brain, because I saw that move right now,
Yeah.
that they should go find another podcast. Right? Let's get rid of some of your audience right now.
Yeah, please go find another podcast if you're editing my brain. Nevertheless, all the self-doubt, they're sitting in that brain.
Oh my God, I can't stand to watch this. But all right.
Yeah, okay.
What is this self-doubt loop that you're in?
The thing is, when I walk the halls of MIT,
yeah,
there's bureaucracy, there's administrators that never have done anything interesting in their entire lives. There's meetings, there's
all the usual crap.
All the usual crap. But there's, in the eyes of individuals,
yeah,
there's this glow of excitement that has nothing to do with career.
I understand this.
And that's just, it's still a playground. There's little pockets of playgrounds from which genius can emerge still. And they're unaffected by diversity meetings or fairness meetings or blah, blah, blah.
I love to hear this.
Yeah? Well, you don't think so?
I don't believe it. Because I've watched the change, Lex. I've watched people edit. We are all editing ourselves all the time. I remember my old mind. I liked it better. All of this relentless focus on critical race theory and, critical theory, postmodernism, fairness, social justice, it's making many of us into worse people.
You think do you think the Matt Damons of the character is paying attention to any of that? You think that has an effect?
Have you seen what happened to Matt Damon himself? Matt Damon has tried to say various things at various times that seem to be relatively innocuous. He can't speak.
Okay, well let's not mix up. Matt Damon is just an actor.
No. He was just a Harvard student who came up with his own genius screenplay, acted, and made it happen. No,
But
we're somewhere else.
You don't think you can build a rocket company out of MIT still?
I think that there are things that you can still do,
but we're losing them.
We lose them. We keep losing them.
I would say the biggest problem here, let me just say what I think the solution would be is to fire anybody who's not faculty, especially young faculty should have way more power, and administration should have much less power. Because right now, the administration, some of whom used to be faculty, but they've lost the fire, the spark that gave them, they've lost the memories of the playground. And so the people that admire and love the playground, you could see it in their behavior, should have way more power. And so we should create systems that give them power.
Lex, you're very idealistic.
Yeah.
And you've got a huge heart. It's a weird time because I don't want to dissuade you from believing beautiful things, because I see how potent you are. You do all these things: jiu-jitsu, guitar, podcasting, programming computers, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think you're right. I think we're in a really deeply screwed up place where even the tiny number of... Let me give you an alternate version of this dystopia. I do think that there are people who are capable, and there's still places to play and cause things to happen that progress the story forward. But if you look at the fire that some of the people are in who fit that profile, like how much crap has Elon Musk taken? Quite considerable, right?
And not much admiration from the
Craig Venter, Jim Watson. These are very difficult people. Steve Jobs is a very difficult guy, you know?
Yeah, it is a bit heartbreaking to me. I mean, everybody is different generations. My mind is a little focused on Elon Musk because he's the modern person.
Well, you know him. I mean, he's a person to you.
It hurts my heart to see how few faculty and people with Nobel Prizes and so on admire Elon. Like how little he gets a lot of fans from like people who buy his products and, you know, young minds.
Yeah.
Just excited. But like, why don't we as why doesn't MIT say that we somebody amongst us will be the next Elon Musk and we want to encourage them? It's like, say that in meetings, say that, like that's success.
No kidding.
For us as MIT. And instead there's this jealousy. It's like,
well, here's the
did you hear what Elon Musk tweeted? Did you see like how irresponsible is what he's doing? How like just saying all these things that are just dripping with jealousy and basically
I want what he's got. That's the thing, right?
And
if you, here's the weird thing. Rivalry has a different signature. You see, when you know that you're never going to make it, that's the position you take. What is it in Kung Fu Panda, which you've watched now?
Yes.
What does Tai Lung say when he's looking for the Dragon Warrior and the Furious Five come to defeat him on the bridge? One of them gives up Poe's name accidentally, and Tai Lung hears it. Poe, so that is his name. Finally, a worthy opponent. Our battle will be legendary, right? Yeah. He's excited. Why is that? Well, you learn about this in boxing. Sometimes you'll see a division or an MMA, which is lousy with talent. Just, you can't swing a cat without hitting an amazing, amazing athlete. Sometimes you'll have a division which at that particular moment has one star and no real competition in that weight class or something. That person is in bad shape, because you can't build a legend without the other. When you think of Muhammad Ali, what are the names that you immediately think of?
And you have to Frazier. You have to think of the other heavyweights. Liston.
Right? Yeah. So those opponents are in part what made Muhammad Ali Muhammad Ali. And that's, you know, that's why the Mayweather McGregor revelation that, okay, this guy's got his opponent's picture in his house. How weird is that? Well, because without the opponent, you may not be able to get there. Now, I am not a huge fan of the wrong kinds of rivalries.
Do you have examples in mind?
Well, there are rivalries where people take each other's credit and screw each other over. And then there are other rivalries like the RNA Thai Club, where these guys were so in love with what they were doing that they couldn't wait to share everything. And like Nobel Prizes were so abundant that, you know, most people got Nobel Prizes just for being a member of the RNA Thai Club and doing cool stuff. And yeah, that's the golden kind of sweet spot. Most of these people can't do what Elon's doing because they can't break rules. They can't take the pressure. I'll tell you what really concerns me about your perspective. I think that there are a lot of genius ideas inside of people who don't have the stomach for conflict and derision. And I think a lot of those people are female. And I think that until we come up with a world in which we can swat down the trolls, where we can actually cause the trolls not to ruin everything. And I don't necessarily mean by shutting them up. I don't necessarily mean by being brutal to them, but somehow separating off people who are working and people who are trolling. I think that we're losing a huge amount of human genius, in part because women in particular are not necessarily going to push an idea if it results in 10 years of being derided. Very few men are willing to do that either. But there are some of us who are so dumb that we will pig-headedly stick to an idea for 10 years, even if the world collapses. I don't think that there are as many women who are going to make that calculation, even if they know the idea is correct.
And one of the things that I believe technology can help us fight the trolls of all definitions of troll. Like, I believe that a better Twitter can be built.
Interesting. I do not. I don't believe that a Twitter successor can be built that solves most of the problems. I think you can always improve what we have, but I don't think that converges in something that really works, because I think ultimately the problem isn't Twitter. The problem is us. For example, I've recently made a very disturbing realization, which is academics and trolls have very many similar behaviors.
Absolutely.
It's largely a trolling community.
I tend to believe that the trolls are not, it's like the Peter Thiel mini mind idea.
Yeah.
Which in all of the trolls, there's the possibility of goodness. And all you have to do, not all you have to do, what you have to do is create technology that incentivizes them to embrace, to discover, to embrace, to practice the better angels of their nature. And I believe that, like, the people actually want to do that. The trolls is a short-term dopamine rush of childish toxicity that all of us want to overcome. I believe that, like, deep within, we want to overcome that.
I try to keep myself from believing what you believe.
Because you'll be disappointed if it's not
because
true.
It's dangerous, because a lot of these people are implacable foes, and there aren't many of them, but when you meet somebody who's like, yeah, I just like screwing people up. I'm here for the pain.
I just believe even in them, there's
a wonderful book that I'm going to recommend to you, where I hope this comes from. Maybe I've got the source wrong, but in any event, it's a great book called Maximum City, about Bombay. Mm-hmm. And I believe the conceit is that the author leaves Bombay as a kid and comes back as an adult, and he realizes he has to rediscover the city because he can't live in the city he left. So he gets in contact with all of the weird areas of the city, and one of them is the underworld. He hangs out with the police, but in the underworld, he's talking to contract killers. And he says, it's really weird. Everybody pleads for their life right before I kill them. And they always say this thing about, I've got 2 kids at home. He says, never say that to a contract killer, because we have terrible relationships with our parents. Doesn't endear us to you. And I was just thinking, oh, wow. So there's a minus sign in front of that statement. You're sitting there saying, I've got a 3-year-old. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to take this POS out of that kid's life. Maybe he'll have a chance. You don't know how people are wired. And as much as I hate to say it, there are people whose wiring is so disturbing and so different from yours that you will never guess why you can't reach them or how much pleasure they may have gotten, because they may have gone over a point of no return.
Nevertheless, you're just a smart guy